Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Hayya ala salat.
Islam Moors, please be seated. So good to stand in front of the Moors. Islam. I rise, giving all praises to Allah, the Father of the universe, cherisher and sustainer of all the balanced universes. I extend the highest of honors to His holy and divine prophet, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Islam. I extend the high honors to his forerunner, the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, the founder of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, who did indeed warn and stir up the nations. Islam. Extending honors to the Moorish flag, the red flag with the 5-pointed green star in the center. The 5 points represent love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. These are the 5 highest principles known to man. Islam. Extending honors to the American flag, also known as the Stars and Stripes. This flag exists as a constant reminder that the European nations owe you, the Moors, with compound interest. Islam. Send honors to noble Sheikh staff and noble Vanguard staff who keep the peace, and giving honors to you, the Ills and Bays, for without you there is no Moorish movement. Islam Moors. Praise Allah. How's everyone on the holy night? Praise Allah. Praise Allah. All right, tonight I want to demonstrate on the topic. And the topic is, who do people say I am? There are a lot of ones that have an increased interest relative to the Moorish movement in America, right? The Prophet Noble Drew Ali's name is on an uptick. People want to know what their nationality is. People want to know what their heritage to the land is. People are starting to wake up and not believing that they're slaves. And the narrative that was given to them, they're waking up to that narrative as being false. Islam Moors, all right? So it's very important for us to know the movement that was brought to us and the founder of that movement, what he stood for, who he was, and more importantly, who he wasn't and what he didn't stand for. Islam Moors? To bring that topic in, I'd like to draw from a text that we're all familiar with, but we have a little disdain for, but it's all right. And that book is called Bible. We have disdain for it because we were never taught how to read it. All right? The book of Matthew, chapter 16, verses 13 through 20, which reads, when Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, who do people say the Son of Man is? They replied, some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets, which is a slick admission that they believed in reincarnation because they had died before him. It says, but what about you? He asked, who do you say I am? Simon Peter said, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Jesus replied, blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Then he ordered his disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. Islam Moors? All right, I want to stop there with the biblical script. Relative to the Prophet Noble Drew Ali Moors, I'd like to ask, who do you say the Prophet Noble Drew Ali is? The floor is open.
Elijah come again.
Elijah come again. Who else? Prophet Noble Drew Ali. For those that are familiar, obviously. If not, we'll do an introduction and introduce them to you. Right? Anyone else? I'll give you an example why it's important to know the reason, the answer to that. Okay? And there's a book, and this book is entitled, Everything is Under Control, Conspiracies, Cults, and Cover-Ups. It's authored by Robert Anton Wilson. In this book, there's an entry of Noble Drew Ali on page 318. Now I want those who know about the Prophet but were too shy to say anything to reflect. It says, Noble Drew Ali, and they're talking about your father. So Noble Drew Ali was possibly born Timothy Drew, probably in 1886, among the Cherokee Indians. Nothing about him is certain, but the Cherokees did often adopt runaway slaves. And some say his parents were slaves. Others say his father was Moorish. His mother was Cherokee. He may have left the Cherokees to join a gypsy band, and he possibly worked as a seaman and or a carnival magician. You hear all the doubt in the opening paragraph? Let me hit those words again. Possibly, probably, nothing about him is certain. Some say, others say, he may have, and he possibly. But see, we'll defer to Europeans to tell us about our forefathers because we don't know who we are. At the point when you stop writing your own narrative and keeping the legacy of your own forefathers alive, you open the door for someone else to tell who your forefathers were. Islam? After about 1912, same record. After about 1912, things become a bit more specific. Now known as Noble Drew Ali, he founded a Temple of Moorish Science in Newark based on a book called The Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, which has very little in common with the Orthodox Quran. Noble Drew's doctrines included the belief that the so-called Negroes or blacks, now called African Americans, are actually Asiatics, descended from the prophetess Ruth in the Old Testament, and that the Moors of North Africa and the Irish shared a common ancestry. He also claimed that the Moors reached this continent long before any Europeans, an idea currently revived by novelist poet Ishmael Reed. Noble Drew also taught that most American blacks were Moors but had forgotten their true identity. His favorite symbols, incidentally, were the Masonic square and compass, the quasi-Masonic eye in the triangle. Some of his other teaching is Allah. They reference says, C, the book of lies, and be yourself and not somebody else. I have that book called The Book of Lies in the back. Says, the Moorish Science Temple gained converts and eventually Noble Drew moved on to Chicago. A poster from May 16th, 1927 announces that the Prophet Noble Drew Ali will reveal events in the last days and then will be bound with 7 yards of rope and escape before the eyes of the audience. That's true. The movement grew even faster, but Noble Drew Ali died under mysterious circumstances the next year, perhaps the result of a police beating. Not true. Some of his ideas live on in surviving Moorish temples and adapted slightly in the Nation of Islam. Recently in the 14 Times examined the strange case of the Melungeons, a group of unknown racial stock in our southern states who have been the subject of controversy for years because of their European features and dark skin. Local Indians never regarded them as quote unquote white and said they came here before any quote unquote white people. The 14 Times finds this most plausible theory is that the Melungeons were of mixed Moorish, Turkish, and Portuguese ancestry. Perhaps they were a part of the gene pool of Noble Drew Ali, and family lore gave him some of his ideas. The 14 Times also suggests that Abraham Lincoln may have had some Melungeon ancestry. Islam Moors? What do y'all feel about that? What do y'all feel about what they just taught about the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the founder of this Moorish Science Temple of America? Is there any guidance in what they just gave you? None whatsoever, right? And that's the point, is to keep him in obscurity, all right? The reason why it's important, Moorish Americans have a question that will be utilized. And the question we refer to as the divine question of the ages. And the question is, what is your nationality? Islam?
Islam.
If you saw someone of Mexican descent and you asked them, what is your nationality? What are they going to say?
Mexican.
If you see someone of Chinese descent, you ask him his nationality. What is he going to say? If you see someone of French descent, what are they going to say?
French American.
Islam? But what about you? What about our family members? What are they going to respond with? Depending on the era of time they were born in, right? My father was born in 1923. He passed in 2012. He was still stuck on the word colored. I have a copy of his birth certificate. So he was, which said colored on it. They marked him with colored, right? And, at 80, right, he passed at 89 years old, and to the day he passed for him, he referred to himself as colored. Couldn't get past it. Knew it was wrong. Knew it was wrong. I never forget the first time I came to my father's house with my fez on, and he lit up, and he was like, the Moors used to wear that. I said, they still do. He said it was Moors. My father, he lived in Camden, New Jersey. And he was like, the Moors, they were doing powerful things. He started giving me the history of what the Moors was doing all through the 70s and 80s and the 90s, whatever. I said, Dad, you never thought to sit down with the Moors or go to the temple or hear nothing about the nationalities? I was scared. So, Dad, well, why were you scared? Well, around the 60s and 70s, they were taking out a lot of leaders. Islam? It took a special type of soul, like you all in this room today, right? To bypass the fear. Because the fear was wired into you when you were just a little baby. When you were just a little child, they made you afraid. My 3-year-old grandson, I've ridden around with him in the car several times. One time he saw some police lights in the back. They weren't pulling us over, they were going past. And he calls me Abu, means father. He says, Abu, slow down. That's the police. They might take you to jail. He's 3. Where did he get that from? He didn't get it from me. I'm letting you know that now, right? Not sure where he got it from, but probably he got it from cartoons or television or something somebody said, or hearing an adult say something that was improper, and he made that a part of his psyche at 3. You see the crime there? All right? So it's very important for us, shukran, all right? It's very important for us to, preserve our institutions, right? Because the institutions, I'm gonna give you a little secret. It's not really about you. Prophet Noble Drew Ali said, I come from the young and yet unborn. Right? So that young man is sitting right there. All this that we're talking about is for you. I'm talking to you. All of this is for him. Right? And the things that you don't understand, this is your son. Your father will explain to you later. Islam wars? All right? Who do people say I am? Right? Moving forward. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali established what he referred to as the divine constitution and bylaws. If you hear at the opening of the meeting, the divine constitution and bylaws were read. This is what the divine constitution and bylaws looks like. This is guided the Moorish Science Temple of America since 1925, 1926, right? At the origin, at the very outset, when these laws were first revealed, it said, instead of Moorish Science Temple of America, it said Moorish Holy Temple of Science at the top, right? The Prophet Noble Drew Ali always taught through symbology, right? Because he knew he didn't have as much time as he would like to deliver the message. So he encoded a lot through symbols, through symbolism, right? In the record I just read, that cult conspiracies, cults, and cover-ups, inside of there, they made reference to the Moorish usage of the quote-unquote Masonic compass and square. Islam? And they said, they made use of the eye, but for some reason they thought ours was in a triangle like this. But clearly you can see it's not. Okay? But these emblems, right, are ancient emblems. They're very ancient. They precede that which is known as Freemasonry today, right? If you research Freemasonry today, and without going into speaking radical agitating against any other organized group, if you research Freemasonry today as known and it's practiced here in America, they'll tell you that relative to the Grand Lodge of England, was founded in the year 1717. Right? So clearly the usage of the compass, the square, the X, the plumb line, the various different things our forefathers used to build the mosques, to build the cathedrals. Your forefathers built the cathedrals too. To build the pyramids and so on and so forth. These predate the Europeans' civilization, right? So for them to put it in a quote unquote Masonic paradigm, right? Which when you really know what that is, it's something else. But as commonly understood, for them to put it there makes you think that the European created it. Islam wars? So back to Noble Drew Ali and the symbolism. One thing that we very seldom talk on. If you look at how this divine constitution and bylaws is constructed, the prophet, as you notice, under his feet is the name Prophet Noble Drew Ali Prophet. Then there's the Moorish American prayer at the bottom, right? So symbolically, the prophet is standing on the prayer. The prayer is what's supporting him. The prayer is the foundation. The invocation of something higher than self that our forefathers called on is what sustains us, right? Above the prophet is the emblems, the star and crescent, the eye, and the hand press. Under there are the words salvation, Allah, unity, right? The Moorish Science Temple of America, the divine constitution and bylaws. That's hovering over his head, right? He's standing on either sides of the tablets of the law. Like they say, Moses came down with 2 tablets of the law. All right? So 360 degrees around the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, he's standing within the law. Islam wars? It wasn't until our people got away from universal law, divine law, and then we started taking on the carnal customs and ideas of man that we began to fall from our true creation. The Quran of Mecca says that man was created to be Allah's successor on the earth. Meaning that the way we were supposed to enact law on the earth is supposed to be as right and exact as if Allah himself were present doing it. And in our golden, eras of our golden civilizations, you see that being a fact, right? Anybody familiar with the Great Pyramids of Giza? Can anybody tell me how many years it took to build those 3 pyramids? Brother Jalil.
I rise you in praise to Almighty God Allah, beneficent and merciful,
Islam.
and God only prophet, and no mutuality.
Islam, are you recognized?
From my understanding, it took about 100 years.
100 years. Islam. How many generations is that? It's 5 generations. Now, you can't construct something like that in a continual state of war. So that means in order for our forefathers to have constructed that, that means they were in a state of peace for at least 5 consecutive generations, right? What year was this country founded, this nation under the United States of America Constitution? Because I know I'm talking to some American citizens, right? 1776, that was what, the Declaration of Independence, right? Constitution, Articles of Confederation, starting with Articles of Association, 1774-ish, around there. Articles of Confederation was 1781, lasting 1 year each until you get to 1789, and that's the Constitution that we have present, right? How many wars has America had since that time? Can you imagine a period of time where there was not war, right? So clearly, we're being influenced and governed over by people who are basically warmongers. Islam wars? Now, how did the glorious Moors allow that to happen? So I tell people all the time that we got to get out of this thing that the European overthrew us. It's a lie. The European was not advanced enough to have overthrown us when they say he overthrew us. You can't take a people who didn't know what soap was and say they overthrew the ones that could tell you where Sirius A and Sirius B were. The Orion star constellation, buildings that are in alignment with it, right? Measure the curvature of the earth. We've been known that the earth wasn't flat, but as you see, they're trying to bring that back, right? So how did this people, the warmongering people, how did they overthrow us? They overthrew us because the things that sustained us, we no longer held as sacred. Islam wars? All right? So now, in that divine constitution and bylaws, Act 1 reads, the Grand Sheikh and the Chairman of the Moorish Science Temple of America is empowered to make law and enforce laws with the assistance of the Prophet and the Grand Body of the Moorish Science Temple of America. The Assistant Grand Sheikh is the Assistant Grand Sheikh in all affairs if he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and it is known before the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Islam? Now, around 1935, there was an individual that started an organization known as the Moorish American Religious League of the United States Incorporated. Right? He established his own divine constitution and bylaws. Pardon himself, it was 1939. He established his own divine constitution and bylaws. His Act 1 states, the minister and the board of trustees of the Moorish American Religious League of the United States of America Incorporated is empowered to make and enforce laws in the name of the Moorish American Religious League of the United States of America Incorporated. The duty of the assistant minister is to adhere to the teachings of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and to assist the minister in, pardon yourself, all undertakings. This shall be known before all members of the Moorish American Religious League of the United States Incorporated. See, that's called the remix. See, that's called tampering with something that was ordained by Allah. The Quran of Mecca says, woe to him that invents a lie against Allah. Right? When Allah sends a prophet, do you know what it takes to birth a prophet? Right? The entire universe has to shift. Right? To allow man and woman to come together who are divinely ordained to be together because their genetic standing is aligned to bring a soul to the earth that's necessary. Islam? When that child is born, it has to be raised in a proper environment, right? To have the answers, to be inspired by the pain of the people that he was sent to. Islam? It's an entire universal shift
teach.
Right? Then when that prophet, there's a period of time that prophet goes through when they don't know that they're a prophet. Right? Then the message is revealed. The call goes out to them. Right? And then they either immediately accept it. All the time they don't immediately accept. Sometimes they break out and run. Jonah. Jonah said, word, I'm out. Islam. And then they give the metaphor of being swallowed by the whale, which is the cares of the world, right? So on and so forth. And when he was spat upon the shore of salvation or understanding, right, he went to the people and preached to them and they were saved. Islam. So the point is, all that allegory that's given to us in Bible, right, is to make us appreciate what the purpose of a prophet is, right? So the Moorish American elders teach us, they say, through, from mouth to ear, they teach us, be careful of changing anything that a prophet brought. And by extension, we include messengers in that. We include forerunners in that. We include deliverers in that, right? As an example, our brother, the most honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, woe to anyone that remixed anything our brother brought. Look, what did he go through? We have one of his representatives in the room tonight. He looked kind of tired, so I'm not gonna put him on blast. But what did that brother go through? What's the type of pain he went through? Assassination attempts, being sold out by those that was close to him, being incarcerated, being deported, being not appreciated by the people of his own homeland when he got there. You see what I'm saying? All for us in this day and time to take an attempt to remix what he brought. Who do people say I am? Islam Moors? And it just goes forward without burdening the Moors. This remix right here is really something else. Islam? And if you thought that was something else, boy, I got something for you now. Woo! All right. This right here, so as to not be radical, I will leave out the title of the book and the author. But this contains a teaching that utilizes or inserts some of the words our prophet introduced to us. For those who are familiar with the prophet, what are some of the words our people were unfamiliar with that he reintroduced to us? Anybody?
Nationality.
Nationality. What else? Citizenship. What else? Morality. Moorish.
Definitely more.
Asiatic.
Asiatic.
Moabite. Yeah, we read it in the Bible. We know what it was, all right? Right? Turban. Fez. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Islam. So what happens is, the prophet talks about those that are, strange mix of truth and falsehood. Okay? So that's the thing about falsehood. Falsehood can't exist on its own. It needs a bit of truth to survive, right? So any lie you listen to has a bit of the truth in it, right? But it takes a discerning eye to be able to, delineate the difference between the two. Now I'm going to read something to you, right? And it's a strange mix, okay? And it's a strange mix because ones are thinking that this is what Moorish Americans teach. Ready? Now I'm asking y'all ready because I know you're not. Y'all ready? In the year 49,000 AM, ancient Moabite, Yaqub produced the red-skinned people with animalistic experimentation of 12 Moabite women and the Negro Yaravo Araba chimpanzee, which resulted in the name Negro. I told y'all wasn't ready. The Moabite masters studied man as a creative being. Their motto was, man, know thyself, and thou will know the universe and the gods. Man is the microcosm of the macrocosm. He is the epitome of all the worlds and all powers. He is the focusing and condensing point of the countless electromagnetic currents, which in energizing become what may be called the living conscious vital electricity of incredible voltage. But hardly, I'm reading this, I'm not freestyling. But hardly comparable. I gotta be dramatic. I gotta get in the car. Hold on. Y'all watch battle rap out there? I said, but hardly comparable to the form of electricity known to the physicists. The magical creative power is variously symbolized in the Bible, and in one place is mentioned as the bush that burned with fire but was not consumed. This powerful force, however, is a double-edged sword that cuts both ways. It exalts or degrades, improves or destroys, depending on the conditions. If activated unnaturally without the power to control, it would give its deadly sting to him to whom it was so unwisely awakened. For example, some people say that this same creative force was unnaturally activated by Yaqub when he created the red man, because Yaqub did not have 100% of control over each of his subjects. As a result, the creation multiplied beyond any kind of its control, leading to the great sting of the Asiatic Moorish nation around the world, especially to the blacks. That's the same, especially to the blacks, lowercase, of North America. This is why some people call Yaqub the devil. Is that Noble Drew Ali? Who do people say I am? See, they didn't mention the prophet's name, right? But they mentioned the terms that he used, so when ones would read that, they would think that was the prophet.
That is good. Wow.
See, Grand Sheiks, you know, when you become a Grand Sheik, you go through a particular chamber. And in that chamber, when you come out, one of the things you're charged with is being set in defense of the gospel. The word gospel just means good news. So any Grand Sheik or any adept, executive ruler, is considered to be a defender of the faith, right? We defend what the prophet brought. Just like the Moorish elders that were before us, the Moorish American elders, kept the doors open, and they kept this, the faithful ones, right? Kept this word for word and passed it down so we could have it. Now keep in mind, our movement was attacked. Islam wars, we were, it was infiltrated. That's true, right? However, the things that came down that the prophet had when he was in the form from 1886 to 1929, we have it in its exact wording, right? That's because ones put their lives on the line to defend and protect it, even when it was dangerous to attend temples. See, there was a period of time in the late 20s when there was a falling out, right? Going into the 30s between Moors, right? And it was dangerous to be caught with a fez or a turban on in the street. When rival factions of Moors was blowing up each other's temples. I have a photograph on my phone of a temple in Pittsburgh. It was blowing up on the holy day. 2 weeks before, 2 weeks before that, the Grand Governor, Brother T. Crumbie Bay, he's the one, if you see the 1928 convention picture, he's the one that has the pharaoh headdress on, sitting down. 2 weeks before that, he was shot in the head, but lived, okay? So what I'm saying is, what came down to you as Moorish, right? We don't have the right in this day and time to play with. You know what I mean? This ain't something you doing the double dutch thing. You jumping and waiting to get in to do your thing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I did it. Yeah, she kind of looked off like, no, we didn't. Yeah, I did that. I did that. I do that from time to time, right? You gotta, a little levity. A little levity helps the message. But the reality of it is, Moors, is that you have to take serious what the prophet brought to you. Islam Moors? So, with that being the case, who is Prophet Noble Drew Ali? Right? Because the thing was, he said that he asked, who do people say I am? And he listened to it, and they answered different answers, But that wasn't the important part. The important part was, who do you say I am? Right? When people ask you, well, who is Noble Drew Ali? Or they see you with a kufi or, turban or fez, specifically the turban and the fez, right? And they ask you, what's that all about? When they ask you what's it about, they're asking you who is Noble Drew Ali, right? When they ask you, well, what's all the changes about? When your family throw the barbecue and you don't want to eat the slab of ribs no more, and they're like, well, what's that all about? And then you give your answer, they're asking you who is Noble Drew Ali. So the importance of it is, how you answer. How do you answer something like that? Well, you answer by way of, what did he say about himself? Islam Moors? For those who have the text known as Moorish literature, right? Which, by the way, Moorish literature, and this is the pamphlet. Mine's a little worse for wear, pardon self. It's been read to death. This is Moorish literature. We have some on the table, right? Yeah, she been wearing me out for weeks. When we gonna get some Moorish literature? Yeah, said you was gonna get something in. I had to go buy one somewhere else because y'all didn't have. Islam, Mobitis. Islam? All right. Go to the article entitled "Savior of Humanity." Let's hear about this prophet of ours. Hear Islam when you're there. Well, says, I think she's gonna give out a couple more, whatever.
What number is it?
Page 9. Maybe not in yours because you have a special edition.
Oh, well.
In the standard issued one that's issued by the Moorish Science Temple of America, it's page 9. Just a little jokey joke. Savior of humanity. Islam boys? And I read this in honor of my sheikh that passed form a couple months ago. Sheikh James Barnes Bay. This was one of his favorite sections to read. I can't read it like he reads it. But I'm going to summon his spirit in reading it. Islam? Savior of humanity. In this electrified age, men are racing into this life without complete knowledge of who they are or where they are or what the end will be. Pardon, let's read that again. In this electrified age, men are racing into this life without complete knowledge of where they are going or what the end will be, when riches seem to be their only pursuit, to be obtained anyway and at any cost. When selfishness, avarice, greed, and lust dominate their very being. When humanity in general is left at the mercy of those who have no mercy in them. It is truly wonderful and astounding to see one come into this mad human drama for the sole purpose of saving humanity. Losing all sight on those things worldly, yielding absolutely to a cause higher than has yet been attained. This picture is the likeness of Prophet Noble Drew Ali, who is serving humanity, coming as he does with a message for the nations in somewhat the same manner as did Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Confucius, and other prophets of their day. Only the things of this prophet's day differ from the ills of the days of the past. And yet, the remedy for the ills of today is about the same as the remedies for the days of the past, all turning about the pivot of love for humanity. Humanity must be lifted from the unwholesome depths of poverty, misery, and suffering, and placed on the solid rock of salvation. There are some who claim to do this, but upon investigation, one finds that they have slouched under the wings of their cross to extract from those who come to them means by which they can have the pleasures of this life, while they point their followers to joy after death. While they feed their sheep, they also shear them while eating. At the close of their day, the master will be heard to tell them, "You have your reward, get thee hence." Rare is it that you will find a real prophet whose mission is the salvation of the nations. The land is full of false prophets whose mission is to fleece the people. The time was and now is that there should come into the land a prophet in the likeness of his brothers, to redeem them from sin and slavery. Truly this prophet, Noble Drew Ali, is the man, bringing with him the message of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, which alone can save the nations. Like the coming of Jesus, he does not come from the elect, nor the rich, nor the mighty in world power, but all power is given unto him to do good. This power is from Allah. It will be his works that will make the men of every nation accept the truth that he brings. It will be through his teachings that the nations of the earth will understand the will of the master. It will be through him that peace on earth and goodwill to all men shall come. It will be through his work that humanity will be brought from the slime of life and placed on the solid rock of salvation. That's Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Right? So who do you say he is? That's who you say he is. And we say that's who he is because that's who he proved to be, who he was. Put Prophet Noble Drew Ali to the test, right? Get with any of the sheiks, grand sheiks, sheikesses, whatever, that know the history of the prophet, and let them pull out. We have all been blessed with historical documentation of the movement, right? So we can show you, the different things, how he was honored by heads of state and the things he did, getting our people to be able to vote when voting was illegal for our people. Things, demonstrating, economic security, so on and so forth. Doing this in the 20s, right? Start teaching in 1913, several years right after slavery. Islam was? So I was in meditation and something came to me and it made me realize, thought was put on my mind that our sister Harriet Tubman, may Allah be pleased with her soul. Sister Harriet Tubman passed form 1913, the same year the Prophet Noble Drew Ali began his mission, right? So this is how Allah works. You have never been left without guidance. Some ones, as I said earlier, were just deliverers. Their job was to get you from this harsh condition here. That's it. They did their job. She did her job. How many people did she come to the South and at gunpoint, this sister was just Moabitess right here, wasn't playing. She had a turban on just like that. Body covered, just like a Muslim.
That's right.
She ain't have her thighs all out. And I'm just saying, sisters, I'm just saying. She looked like a Moorish American Muslim, I'm just saying, right? But at gunpoint, you're going to be free today.
Absolutely.
Now, I'll blow your head off talking about you're going to be a slave. Come on. Talking a big old, you know how them big them brothers was back in the day. You tell me I'm scared, I'm scared. You better come on. Islam? But her job, she was a deliverer. Her job was to get us from the physical conditions of slavery. But the most honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey and Prophet Noble Drew Ali, their job was to get you from mental slavery. Which if you change this, your body has no choice but to follow. You know, they had this phrase years ago, change your mind and your hind parts will follow. It's the holy day, I don't want to do that. Islam? For those that remember, the younger people don't remember that, right? But praise Allah. Islam Morris, you know, this movement right here is nothing to be played with. You know, this movement right here encompasses a lot. There's a lot of study, right? But the greatest of study that you have to involve yourself in is the study of yourself, right? You have to dig down in the, you know, the deep recesses of your being to to look into your heart and know its worthiness, right? Do you have the inner strength to give your life as a willing sacrifice for your people? Do you have that strength? And if you don't, get with those that do, right? And they could teach you a walk. And that walk, through that walk, you begin to learn different things, right? Because fear is an illusion, right? Is fear real?
No.
You know, in semantics, they say fear is false evidence appearing real, you know? And once you face the fear head on, it's no longer a fear. You know, and this is the apprehension that the European has about how he ruled over you. Because fear wears off, you know. The younger generation now aren't as afraid as older generations were, you know. I remember my generation in the 70s was some of the first to wake up and be in church and be like, I don't believe nothing the preacher's saying. Nothing. Like, I don't believe none of it. I'm here by threat, duress, and coercion. How many people saw the little boy that was beat on Facebook with the belt? Y'all saw that? I mean, I had some flashbacks. That joint like a 70s whipping, which sadly enough to say, you know, they took all 5 of their sister's children. Right? It's a new era anymore.
Yes, sir.
It's a new era of time now. You can't do the way we used to do.
Not out in public.
Well, because we don't have a community, sis. You gotta put the community back together. You know, and in the community, everybody take the vow. I ain't gonna say oath, but everybody takes the vow. You know, if you see mine cross town acting a monkeyism, you snatch him up by his hind parts and demonstrate justice on him.
That's right.
Bring him to me, and I'm gonna demonstrate justice on him.
Right.
Islam Morris? But that's the importance of having your own society. You can enforce that. You out here, it's a different set of rules. Right up and down. How many people saw all them blue lights on the lamp poles as you came up Cleveland Avenue? Cameras everywhere. We don't even pay attention. I was in, where was I the other day? I was in Kroger the other day. I just happened to look up. It was like mad cameras in the ceiling. Way more than usual. They put way more. You know what I'm saying? So this is the era of time that we're in, you know, where the European, you know, perverts this. You know, they call it all-seeing eye, right? You know, to us, it's, you know, the eye of Allah. You know, which, you know, if you're somewhere and you see something, that means I saw it. Your experiences are my experiences because we're linked, right? You know, when we operating right, we're synced up, right? So, and the mothers know this better than the brothers do. But your baby or your you know, a close relative or somebody, whatever, something could have happened to them and you felt it, you know? And I've actually seen sisters grab their womb. Something ain't right. Where you at? My mom did it. And one time I got chased by some Doberman Pinschers. I was across town. I handled business over there. Chased, almost died by 2 Doberman Pinschers, full-grown Doberman Pinschers. And hey, I ain't gonna say some of the words I was saying. I wasn't a Moorish American then, Islam. But I came back home and acted like wasn't nothing wrong. And she was out front like, where was you at? What was you doing? And who was you doing it with? Wow. And I was like, my mom is psychic. This is Miss Cleo. For those that remember that, right? This woman was psychic.
Miss Cleo.
You know? But either she felt it or somebody in the community saw me and went and snitched me. I did a Tekashi 6ix9ine on me. You know what I mean? And gave up the goods. Islam? But, yeah. That's another. When we lower the meeting, we can get into that. But yes, more. So, you know, when we're operating right, we sync up and we experience each other. And that's the all-seeing eye. That's omnipotence. That's omniscience. Islam Morris? All right? For those who have your Holy Qurans, go to chapter 47. Right? For non-Roman readers, that is XLVII. And the heading of that, the head of the chapter is Egypt, the capital empire of the Dominion of Africa. Just want to touch on a few things. One of the prophet's obligations was to give you the length and the breadth of your forefathers' empire, right? There's a big argument now, and I'm not jumping into it with 2 feet. I'm just addressing the argument. The argument is, was it American descendants of slavery, or slaves, depending on how they do it, or Pan-Africanism, right? So do we look at the whole thing, or is it just us here and to the exclusion of everybody else, right? Well, let's look what Prophet Noble Drew Ali has to say about that, right? Let me hear Islam when you're there. Islam. Praise Allah. Y'all all right? Islam. Egypt, the capital empire of the Dominion of Africa. First of all, what is a dominion?
Absolute.
Islam. Absolute control. You know the word Lord in Latin is dominus, right? Which means absolute control, right? The word condominium is common dominium. You know, common rule, common absolute rule, right? It says, the inhabitants of Africa are the descendants of the ancient Canaanites from the land of Canaan. Old man Cush and his family are the first inhabitants of Africa who came from the Holy Land, who came from the land of Canaan. His father Ham and his family was second. Then came the word Ethiopia, which means the demarcation line of the dominion of Amexem, the first true and divine name of Africa. The dividing of the land between father and the son. The dominion of Cush, northeast and southeast Africa. And northwest and southwest was his father's dominion of Africa. In latter years, many of their brethren from Asia and the Holy Lands joined them. The Moabites from the land of Moab, who received permission from the pharaohs, note plural, pharaohs of Egypt, to settle and inhabit northwest Africa. They were the founders and are present, the true possessors of the present Moroccan Empire, with their Canaanite, Hittite, and Amorite brethren who sojourned from the land of Canaan seeking new homes. Their dominion and inhabitation extended from northeast and southwest Africa, across the great Atlantis, even unto the present North, South, and Central America, and also Mexico and the Atlantis Islands, before the great earthquake, which caused the great Atlantic Ocean. The river Nile was dredged and made by the ancient pharaohs of Egypt in order to trade with the surrounding kingdoms. Also, the Niger River was dredged by the great pharaoh of Egypt in those ancient days for trade, and it extends eastward from the river Nile westward across the great Atlantic. It was used for trade and transportation. According to all, and make note, it's instruction 9. What is it, Sister Queen? What does the number 9 represent, Moabites? Islam, please.
I rise giving all praise to Allah, the beneficent, the compassionate, the merciful, and to his prophet, Noble Drew Ali,
Islam.
to his forerunner, Marcus Mosiah Garvey.
Islam, you recognize.
Number 9 is actually the number of completion.
Islam. Praise Allah. All right? So it's the number of completion. So note the instruction. According to all true and divine records of the human race, there is no Negro, black, or colored race attached to the human family, because all the inhabitants of Africa were and are of the human race, descendants of the Canaanite nation from the Holy Land of Canaan. What your ancient forefathers were, you are today without doubt or contradiction. There is no one who is able to change man from the descendant nature of his forefathers unless his power extends beyond the great universal creator Allah himself. These holy and divine laws are from the prophet Noble Drew Ali, the founder of the uniting of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Make note that is a prophecy, because in 1927, when this was revealed, there was only one Moorish Science Temple of America. We weren't disunified then. So he prophesied that we were going to fall out. Right? He said these laws are to be strictly preserved by the members of all the temples of the Moorish Science Temple of America, that they will learn to open their meeting and guide it according to the principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Every subordinate temple of the Grand Major Temple is to form under the covenant of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and create their own laws and customs in conjunction with the laws of the Holy Prophet and the Grand Temple. I, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, was sent by the great God Allah to warn all Asiatics of America to repent from their sinful ways before the great and lawful day which is sure to come. The time has come when every nation must worship under its own vine and fig tree, and every tongue must confess its own. That makes reference to the book of Micah in the Bible, the vine and fig tree. Through sin and disobedience, every nation has suffered slavery due to the fact that they honored not the creed and principles of their forefathers. That is why the nationality of the Moors was taken away from them in 1774, and the word Negro, black, and colored was given to the Asiatics of America who were of Moorish descent, because they honored not the principles of their mother and father and strayed after the gods of Europe, of whom they knew nothing of. Noble Drew Ali, Islam Moors? Now, the name Kush, and we ain't talking about what they talk about Kush mean on the street. Islam?
Islam.
All right. Old man Kush. What land is that dealing with presently? Kush. Roundabout. Part of Ethiopia, exactly. And I love how he answered it, because most will say Ethiopia, right? But as we know, 1885 Berlin Conference put the boundary there. But see, as we see here, the boundary marks, the prophet laying out where the boundary marks were, right? When he demonstrated in instruction 3, when he said his father Ham and his family was second, then came the word Ethiopia, which means the demarcation line of the dominion of Amexem. This is when father and son and their genealogy split. One went to the east, another one went to the west, right? Anyone ever read Runoko Rashidi's book, African Present in Early Asia? If you don't have it, get it. What you do is you lay the Holy Quran, the Moorish Science Temple of America, next to it and read it, and you'll be able to see, what he's talking about. Because he's breaking down stuff like in Cambodia, right? They have statues of Buddha, and these things like hundreds of feet tall, whatever, but they look like you in this room. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't look like what you consider to be Asian today, right? They look like us, which is why when the Asians see us, they have a particular look for you. I don't know if you ever noticed that. Pay attention next time you go to the Chinese restaurant. When you walk in there, they have a look for you, right? Especially if you walk in with your turban or fez on. As we know, when we were up in, from Moorish America, remembers that we stopped by a Chinese restaurant, and the lady, she was, you look so beautiful. Oh, this is, where are you going? She was, no, this is everyday wear. She's very Moorish with it. No, this is everyday. No. Oh, she made such a big fuss, right? Not because it was strange, right? Not because she hadn't seen it before, because she's not used to seeing us look like ourselves. Islam Moors, they used to seeing us with true religion jeans on. We let somebody else tell us what the true religion is.
And like when we were at...
Isn't the logo for that Buddha?
Right.
Man, y'all better wake up. Go ahead.
When we were at the Japanese restaurant Monday.
Okay.
And, the Moors hollered from across the room, Islam Moabite.
Wake up.
But they knew us because I had my piano.
You're recognizable. Exactly. And, the day, we're in a day and time where, you have to create a distinction. You know what I'm saying? Because you almost have to show that you know who you are, right? Because there is a different treatment. Yeah, remember, we put the European under certain obligations. Anybody aware of that history? Right? We set certain ones of them aside, under penalties of death in a lot of cases, to perform and to carry out certain things, right? The 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, what building sits there?
White House.
The White House, right? Why is it called the White House? Anybody know? There's a city in Morocco called, for those taking notes, Dar, D-A-R, next word, Allen, lowercase a, L, hyphen, Beda, which is B-E-I-D-A. Dar Beda means White House, right? When the French invaded Morocco, they didn't speak Arabic, so, well, not the French, the Spanish actually. because they came before the French. When the Spanish came, they called it Casa Blanca, White House. Okay? That palace is for the rulers of the land. It's no strange happening that I myself and Sheikh Raphael Bey are wearing white turbans tonight, right? The wearing of white, when you look back to our ancient forefathers, white was worn by the ruler of the land. If you look at the ancient sultans, back in the Moorish Empire, they wore all white. In a lot of cases, even today in Nigeria, there's a group of people called the Sokoto, right? The Sokoto people of Nigeria, they wear turbans and wear veils, right? Where the sultan wears the veil, right? Because, it's basically behind the fact that his words are sacred. When he speaks, something has to happen. He's not engaged, he's just not shooting the breeze. If he comes before the people and he speaks, that's law. Islam wars. The color of white, this is why we don't refer to the European as white, right? Because by doing that, by deference, you're automatically deferring to him as the lawgiver when you say that, right? When the Cherokee were defeated by the Europeans, what's the name that they started calling all the European presidents? The title was a title, anybody know? The Great White Father, right? Research for that history, research John Ross, right? And by that name, you'd never know he was Cherokee. But he was one of the Cherokee leaders, one of the last ones, right? And that's what he referred to, what's your man, Andrew Jackson, Great White Father. Islam? But it wasn't white in the sense like we know it as today. But they had been defeated and he was ruling the land now. So Great White Father. Because before then, amongst the indigenous, the one that ruled the land was also known as white. Right? There's something known as the Great White Brotherhood. Right? That Great White Brotherhood is known by different names around the world. And in your Holy Quran, the Moorish Science Temple of America is known as the Silent Brotherhood. In ancient Palestine, it was known as the Essenes. In Egypt, they were called the Therapeutae. In Orthodox Islam, the mystics of them, they refer to them as the Sufis. Right? These were the masterminds of these particular, they actually set up orders, religious orders, and these were the ones that guided the government. Right? So we will be foolish not thinking that those ones that hold these political positions over us, they're not a part of certain orders, all right, and are attached to certain brotherhoods, right? But the question is, as an Asiatic people in America, where's your brotherhood? Of what brotherhood are you all a part? How do I know how to recognize you by night and by day, or some will say in the dark as well as the light? How do I know? You see what I'm saying? If we're in a crowded room full of people, we can't communicate without talking. Right? This is the ancient way that our forefathers ruled, and the Europeans, when we allowed them to take power, we initiated them into certain aspects of that. Right? And that's what they're calling Masonry. Right? But our ancient way was very systematic, was very degree oriented. In the ancient systems, like I'll give you three of the aspects: neophyte, devotee, and adept. Right? Neophyte, just Neo. What was my man's name on the Matrix? Yeah. I got one for you. In the beginning of Matrix 1, when they knocked on when he was asleep at the computer, somebody knocked on the door, with those distinct knocks, and he opened the door. What apartment was he in? 101. For those that know been to Sunday school, them 101. Okay, I'm not gonna do it. Y'all gotta come on Sunday for that. I'm not doing that right now. I was just watching the Matrix the other night. It's fresh in my mind. I'm sorry. Right? No, it ain't deep. It's not deep. It's just I'm telling you, they put it in your face. See, a lot of times you think that they make movies to entertain you. That's where you mess up. No, they make movies to see who's awake. Islam wars, Sheikh Rashid is a mastermind in this regard. He actually told me, he instructed me about the what they call I think it's called the cycle of the hero or something like that. Where all movies follow a particular format. You know what I mean? But see, their writers get together. Their writers are research. Anybody seen Doctor Strange?
Oh, yeah.
Now, what y'all think about that? Now, you want to talk about deep? You didn't like it? He's looking like ants. Okay. Yeah. I'm referencing. What's your favorite Marvel movie? Endgame was dope. Dope. That last fight scene had me on the moon. I was like, what? Anyway, I'm back. What's your favorite Marvel movie? You have one? What is it? Hulk. You like the Hulk? That's what's up. We got to talk. I like the Hulk too. We got to talk after the meet. All right. But the reality of it is that in these movies, they're dropping your science in there, right? What was Doctor Strange's power? How did he get his power? Reading books, studying. That's how he became a mastermind. Islam. So they putting it in your face, right? When he's doing all the joints and when you see Buddha in his postures with the hand symbols, those are called mudras, right? M-U-D-R-A. Each one opens various different chakras and points and meridians in the body, right? So when you see Noble Drew Ali, I can't get the other ones, but when you see him demonstrate, you see him working his degrees, you know what I mean? He's communicating, And so there's a whole level of life that we have to wake our people up to that's a part of our forefathers' legacy, right? Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns, or statements? Islam, brother?
They're moving National Treasure. Another one with a lot of. Yeah.
At a certain point, National Treasure wasn't even a movie, that was a documentary.
Yeah.
And even you see the second one?
Some of it, yeah.
The one where they had the treasure under Mount Rushmore?
The old mix.
Yeah, when they dealt with the Olmecs and all that?
Yeah.
Mount Rushmore. What does Resh mean in Hebrew?
I don't know.
Head. Mount Rushmore is the head of the Moors. Fact. It's a Ras in Arabic. The Rastafari, they use that.
They doing mockery?
Ras, I can't say that.
You think it's mockery?
Yeah, I caught myself. Second.
Mockery?
No.
Time when they be...
No, it's an honor. Here's how it's not mockery. The European, you heard of Shriners before?
Yeah.
Okay. You familiar with the Fox Theater downtown? Yeah. Okay. You familiar with the Shriner Temple on Ponce de Leon? It's called Yarab Temple.
Somewhere.
When you look at those edifices, let's say, how much do you think that it costs to build a Fox Theater? Something on that level.
It ain't cheap, I know that.
Nah, not at all. Well into the millions?
I would say that.
Okay. Would you is it wise to spend millions of dollars just to make mockery of someone? Or are you trying to rule in their stead? You understand what I'm saying? I'll give you an example. Anybody have a dollar bill?
They say they perpetrate in the sense.
Kind of.
Go ahead, though, go ahead.
Yeah. We in the same spirit. Anybody got a dollar bill? I don't want it. Just pull it out. No? Oh, everybody got a card?
Yeah, we'll finish that.
Islam. Well, y'all more, man. God, I got one. See, this is why I still carry cash messing with y'all. I got you. Y'all, man, y'all something, man. No, we don't carry cash.
Nothing that small.
No, nothing that's Islam. That was Moorish. Nothing that small. Islam. What is George Washington wearing on his head? Wig. Give me some of the history of the wigs that they wore. The Whigamores was a what? A political party, right? But specifically the wigs. Where'd they get the wigs from? That's where they got the idea to wear them. But where'd they get the actual wigs from? Let's say this. In America, when the Native Americans and the Europeans went to war, the Native Americans were very specific about doing a particular thing when they caught a European. Islam. They have a hatchet. And they separate their hairline from their body, right? What they would do is those wigs that you actually see them wearing are when the Europeans was actually scalping Moors. Those are actually woolly haired wigs, right? If you go back and look at type for those, taking notes or putting it in your phone, the House of Lords in London, and there's another one, because it's like their House of Representatives versus Senate. House of Commons, thank you. The House of Commons and the House of Lords, which I love to watch, by the way. Anybody ever watch their proceedings?
Yes.
They actually shout down a person if they don't agree with them. Boo! It's hilarious. Anyway, I digress. But you actually see the high, one of the high-ranking people, or any of the coronations where the queen comes out, their queen comes out. You see somebody sitting off to the side with the wig on. If they zoom in, which they usually zoom in on different people, look at the texture of the wig. It's a woolly-haired wig, right? And again, just to because it was a status, they made it a status symbol, right? That's why only the rich really wore them. Okay. George Washington. Anybody know George Washington? Washington was not his real name. Hilarious bit of history. I love senseless facts. I can only share this with the Moors. His family name, his name was George, I can't make this up, it's history. George de Hartburn.
The heartburn?
Facts. D-E and then H-E-R-T-B-U-R-N, right?
Said the heartburn.
I didn't invent Google. You can find it out just like I did. George, yes. He took the name Washington was given to him after he had graduated from certain schools to learn government. Yes.
You said George, the heartburn?
The heartburn, right? He took the name Washington was given to him later. There's a book, I don't think I have it here. Anybody ever heard of Prince Whipple?
Yes.
Okay, who's Prince Whipple, Mo?
I've heard the name.
Y'all ever seen those pictures? Anybody just Google George Washington, go to images, and just scroll down. You'll see a picture of George Washington, somewhere in there. So George Washington's in the front, doing his, Masonic gestures or whatever. And then you have a Moor, because slaves didn't dress like this. In the background, little short brother with a silk turban on, jewels, dressed like Noble Drew Ali.
On the $2 bill?
No.
Okay.
No. So on this one, he's sitting in the background. Now, what you have to know about ancient portraits and ancient picture taking, a lot of times in the ancient world, when they depict it, the master stood in the back and the apprentice stood up front. Islam? Prince Whipple. Okay. So while you write down Prince Whipple, also write this name down, Abdul Hamid, Hamid. These were George Washington's handlers to teach him Moorish etiquette, to civilize him, to prepare him to become a head of state. Okay? Because again, they knew nothing about governing a republic. So we're gonna get into this when we get into the Constitution or Sunday schools, but that Constitution is your document. Okay? The European lived under, what mode of government did, when they left England, what mode of government was there in England? Monarchy. Absolute monarchy specifically, right? Again, like I said, whatever the king said was law. That was it. When they came to America, messing with the indigenous people, our forefathers, right? We dealt with we the people. That was write this down for those taking notes.
Iroquois, right?
Okay, yes, facts, but the French called us that, right? If you want our original name that we use, write this down. H-A-U is Haudenosaunee, which is H-A-U-D-E-N-O-S-A-U-N-E-E. Haudenosaunee, right? That was the name for a confederation of 6 nations. That was the first form of which we have as the United Nations, before some European anything, right? I was here in America. When they got here, this was already in place, okay? William Penn, like I always reference, for further reference to this, get the book, A Flag Above Any Other. I go into it in that book. But inside of there, you'll see that once he, received his lessons and stuff like that, by the indigenous people, our forefathers gave him the name Miquon. Write this down, M-I-Q-U-O-N, Miquon. And Miquon means quill, which just like the feather that's in Prophet Noble Drew Ali's turban, that is also used as a pen, right? He was a scribe for the Europeans to take notes amongst the Iroquois Confederation, on their operation of government. So when the meeting was convened and everything started, he said, because he was like, "What are they doing? Why are they consulting with the people? What's that?" So he had to actually take notes because he had never seen that before. So this is 1600. So this is actually before the 1700 piece. So this is the lead up to what you have as Articles of Association and all that. And that was before their systematic overthrow, which led them to, have to put in their own version of our own document. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So,
you know what you're saying? Mm-hmm. Perfect sense.
Islam. So this is what the prophet is bringing, right? So when the prophet's telling you, like, again, back in chapter 47, when he does this, right? He says, in instruction 7, he will do that. Their dominion and inhabitation extended from northeast and southwest Africa across the great Atlantis, even unto the present North, South, Central America, and also Mexico and the Atlantis Islands. That's North, South, Central America, Mexico, and the Caribbean. Islam? Now he's telling you that these were your territories before the European got here, right? Real quick, jump over to chapter 45, if you think that's not clear enough. Chapter 45, 2 chapters before that. The divine origin of the Asiatic nations. I'll do this, I'll open the floor for questions, and then I'll lower the meeting. The divine origin of the Asiatic nations. Instruction 1. The fallen sons and daughters of the Asiatic nations of North America need to learn to love instead of hate, and to know of the higher self and lower self. This is the uniting of the Holy Quran of Mecca for teaching and instructing all Moorish Americans, etc. So remember, when the prophet references Holy Quran of Mecca, he's talking about you. Referencing the book, he's talking about your own higher and lower self. We can read the book, but he's really talking about you. Islam Morris? All right? Instruction 2. The key of civilization was and is in the hands of the Asiatic nations. The Moorish, who were the ancient Moabites and the founders of the holy city of Mecca. The Egyptians, who were the Hammatites, and of a direct descendant of Mizraim. The Arabians, the seed of Hagar. Japanese and Chinese, so he ties them in with an Egyptian bloodline, right? Instruction 4. The Hindus, note the spelling of Hindu. The Hindus of India, the descendants of the ancient Canaanites, Hittites, and Moabites from the land of Canaan. Really quick. Y'all familiar with Abraham in the Bible, right? Okay, so in India, Abraham's known as Brahma, right? Abraham had a wife whose first name was Sarai, Sarai, which is a shortened version of the Indus Kushite deity Sarasvati. Islamors? So that genealogy goes back to India, which ultimately is Canaanite. Noble Drew telling you that right here, right? He says, the Asiatic nations and countries in North, South, and Central America, the Moorish Americans and Mexicans in North America, Brazilians, Argentinians, and Chileans in South America, Colombians, Nicaraguans, and the natives of San Salvador in Central America, etc. All of these are Muslims. The Turks are the true descendants of Hagar, who are the chief protectors of the Islamic creed of Mecca, beginning from Muhammad I, the founder of the uniting of Islam by the command of the great and universal God, Allah. Islamors? Now that message is powerful, powerful, right? But it's even more powerful now with the current political condition between us and the Mexicans here in the United States. So for that to be there, that's your go card to bring your brothers and sisters that's calling themselves Mexicans home. Islamors? Because how did they get those Spanish names? Right, the conquistadors, which is the ones that demonstrated conquest, right? And even before that, back in Moorish Spain, when they overthrew the Moors, the Moors were there 800 years, they overthrew the Moors and they put Spanish names on. Those are the first names we had. The English names weren't the first ones we had. We were Hernandez first. We were Lopez first. We were all of that. Then the English overthrew them and changed our names again. Right? So this changing of our names and what we refer to ourselves, this has been going on. See, where are you counting 400 years from? Right? Our people have been talking 400 years for the last 100 years. Right? But if you count it from 1492, it makes perfect sense. Because from 1492 all the way up to around when slavery was abolished on paper, that gives you about 400 years right there. But you got to calculate it from when the Moors were first overthrown for the prophecy to make sense. Islam Wars? All right? Are there any questions, comments, concerns, or statements? Islam, brother? Yes, sir. I love when you ask questions, brother. Yes, sir.
Question I have for you.
Yes.
Majority of nations have a color. Would you say?
I'll hear you out. Finish your statement first.
What is the color of Islam?
Have a color. You mean a national color?
Yeah.
Well, that's arguable because here's why. Because when you're dealing with Islam, Islam is imperial, so it's an empire.
Right.
So what happens is it breaks when you're dealing with Islam, you're dealing with various different nations that have their cultural traditions about how they approach Islam. Right? So if it's Morocco, it's red. Right? If it's Arabia, it could either be green or white. Which Arabia's flag, you ever seen the Saudi flag? It's red with La ilaha illallah Muhammad. So there's no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger with two swords like this.
Right.
So it'd be green there. It varies according to.
Right. And the reason why I asked that question is because they say Islam color is green, and United States dollar is greenback.
No strange happening. Because you have to remember, I hope this doesn't open up a can of worms. Anybody ever researched the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, 1787? Okay. We're not even going to deal with the treaty. That's not what we're talking about, so we're not doing that. What I'm dealing with is, who was the European representative for America in that? Well, who was it supposed to be? Let's say that. It was supposed to be Benjamin Franklin, but he got sick. So it's a man named Thomas Barclay that he put in. And his post was Minister Plenipotentiary, right? A plenipotentiary means that his job is, he is given, he's given the authority to, execute treaties on behalf of the government, okay? It was supposed to be Benjamin Franklin because Benjamin Franklin was a phenomenal student of the Moors, right? You have a treasure here, being here in Georgia, which was one of the original 13 colonies. You can go to the library downtown. I've done it. And on I think it's the 3rd floor, they have Benjamin Franklin's original writings. Like they look like that Bible over in the corner. Real old, real. Blew my mind because it was just out on the shelf. You know, as someone that loves books, I was going off. I asked the librarian, I said, yo, why is this not in a glass? You know, because this thing is like, you know, a couple hundred years old. Point is, when you go inside of it, you reference National Treasure. Remember all the stuff they were seeing with the signs and stuff? You had to put the special glasses on to see and all that. You know, all that that we teach about astrology and numerology and all that's in that book. And he got that stuff from the Moors. He talks about the Moors in the books. You understand what I'm saying? So these Europeans were phenomenal students of us. I'm saying all this to say that, you know, when you're dealing with, you know, the color of the dollar and so on and so forth, they were actually, and to your point, mimicking how the Moors ruled. Kind of like, you know, your children do the things that you do. They don't really do the things that you say. They watch you and say, that, you know, if you tell your child, don't eat after 9, and they see you go in the refrigerator at 11 o'clock, they be like, I got something for you when you go to sleep, because I'm doing what you did. Islam? Well, you got to remember, and it's something we don't like to claim, right? And I'll say this. The Moorish men are the biggest deadbeat dad on earth. Here's why I say that. We went around the earth sowing seeds, right? And then left them. You know, we gave them a book, some prayer rituals, maybe a little economics, and bounced. And we left them to their own understanding. You see what I'm saying? So that's why there's a general disdain for us, in a sense. You know what I mean? We've been known to go in and change the complexion of entire continents. Islam. But the point is, they looked up to us in such a way where it was almost reverential. They looked at us as God. You know what I'm saying? So just as we looked at the European in our ignorance, that's literally how they looked at us, but on steroids though, because they knew that no matter where they went, you were responsible for building every edifice that they found. How do you think Napoleon felt when he came into Egypt and saw the Sphinx buried up to his face like this? You know what I'm saying? It's like, and they dig it out, it's a whole thing. And like, what in the world? Who? Right? Or they cut the corner as the pyramids of Giza. Who built that? You ever notice? Who's familiar with the 6-Day War? Am I familiar with that? Egypt and Israel. Who else was it? Egypt, Israel. This is my historian right here. Brother Roy, who was it? Egypt, Israel.
Egypt, Israel.
I thought it was 3 nations. Was it just 2? Egypt and Israel?
No, Egypt, Israel. Yeah, I think it was this two.
Just those 2? Okay. Only lasted for 6 days, and they was at it, right? But you notice Israel never said, let's blow up the pyramids.
Right.
I don't care what goes on earth, ain't nobody gonna hit them pyramids. Just like ain't nobody gonna hit that Kaaba. Anybody ever seen the movie Salt with Angelina Jolie? Yeah. Remember the plot on there was that they was trying to blow up the Kaaba, remember? To start a world war, you know what I'm saying? But it's not even that point, but it's the point that those are ancient landmarks, right? And they're not to be moved or violated. So you'd have to, you know, Google the word landmarks, right? Google landmarks and the word inviolable, or put Bible and put landmarks and see the study that you get, right? And think that the European wasn't using your ancient Israelite law, and then look at the Liberty Bell. What's inscribed on the Liberty Bell? Anybody know? Leviticus 25:10. Now read that.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Hayya ala salah. Allah.